Several themes occurred to me while I was on the road. Kind of ran throughout the whole trip. One of them is whether I should eat meat. Whether it was sort of partly immoral to kill animals to eat them. I think overall I have to satisfy myself, or at that time, and certainly now still, satisfied myself with the idea that humans throughout history have eaten meat, that it's not a new thing, that as an animal, if we analyzed their behavior, they ate meat. Other animals eat meat. It's not a thing, in my opinion, that is inherently immoral or wrong as an activity, because it's just a natural way that we've always been. So coming to that deduction, I kind of felt like it was okay, but I still had reservations. Like everyone else, I like animals. I like cats and dogs, and grew up with pets and stuff, and love going to the zoo and learning about the great majestic animals in faraway lands, Africa and Asia and South America, Canada, far away. It's pretty far away. I grew up in middle America, so we had interesting animals in our neighborhood too. And then this philosophical aspect of, is it any better to kill and eat plants? You know, plant deserves to live too. If you look at one of these great huge old trees, one of these big oak trees, or the, what is it, baobab tree of Africa, and the great redwoods and sequoias of the west coast of America, and other trees in other places. I believe there's a Jerusalem tree or something, that have been alive for hundreds of years, some of them 1,000 years or more. It's been alive that long, and then we come along and cut it down and make it into furniture, or worst case, into firewood. Is that any better? Is that any more moral? Can you be forgiven for that any quicker or more readily than you can be forgiven for killing an animal to eat? And then I'm not even looking at the whole issue of just killing for killing's sake. The great white hunter of the last century or two, the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, Englishmen in their geographic clubs would sit around telling great stories of their having gone here and killed a wild rhino on the plains of the Serengeti. And in some cases having the trophy in their trophy room to show for it, a mounted head, or sometimes the whole beast, or bear skin or tiger skin rug. And you know, again, those were exotic times, and growing up as humans have, maturing as a species that has a society, which society then is also growing up and kind of maturing. During those periods, it kind of didn't know any better. Kind of was like a kid with a new box of crayons going, look how bright this yellow is, and look blue, 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 and just going crazy with it, because at that point, technology and our ability to travel and to fight and conquer other species, other beasts, was at a pinnacle such that we kind of could go anywhere we wanted, and kind of could fight and kill, seek out and kill any animal we wanted to. So whereas in earlier tribal state, we may have been in fear of certain animals or avoided them, and in some cases revered them, but in those earlier states, we were less likely to take it upon ourselves as a game to go out and see if we can best ourselves against the Bengal tiger, you know. Sad thing about a lot of that is that we've been slow to put on the brakes, and we're actually losing some of these great species, or will be. We've lost some already, but in particular, it's not even our hunting them for sport anymore, or hunting them for food anymore, that we're losing them at least the land animals. They're losing habitat. They're losing space, room to live. For elephant, that's pretty dramatic. It can be, you know, extincting pretty quickly. They require hundreds of miles of territory. At least some that do travel a lot, and there's some that I think migrate hundreds of miles over the course of a year. And they might be satisfied in a reserve within a few hundred square miles or whatever. But that would not be the same as they exist now in a wild, completely free state. It would be kind of like being put in a zoo, not a large-scale zoo, and that too would be kind of sad. I'm a little bit mixed feelings over zoos and circuses, and I think obviously we can understand how cruel an animal living in a circus, how cruel that might be for the animal to live in a circus. If a human makes that decision, he makes that decision consciously to live and travel in a circus. And that's a life. I mean, it's a rough life in some cases. It's hard. But they make that decision and do that. With a wild animal, or an animal that's been tamed but still, you know, maybe grew up part of the time in the wild free, that's not really a decision. They've been caught and captured, placed in that circumstance, and in some cases mistreated or beaten to be trained to respond in certain ways in that circumstance. So that's not exactly nice or fair or moral either. You know, you wouldn't really want it to happen to you or another human being. Feel like slavery is a bad thing. Well, this is kind of an animal slavery in a sense. So I'm not making judgments over all that. I'm trying to explain that I believe that to some degree these activities of humans and societies are a natural process that we have gone through as societies, and as our societies mature and our advancements in technology and invention and whatnot mature, we can do with less and not have to have certain conventions and whatnot that we grew up with. As a society, starting from being more a tribal hunter-gatherer type animal and developing into a society that has agriculture and cities and mercantilism, trade and whatnot, we advance a little beyond the need to eat meat or to hunt animals or to even domesticate animals for the purpose of helping us with the farming and whatnot. There are some ideas that the sacred cow of some philosophical religious beliefs may have come from the idea that it's better to have the cow as a pack animal, load animal that can pull a hoe or can perform services around the farm or provide milk or provide offspring that then the offspring possibly could be eaten or at least used in agricultural labor. It's better to keep the cow alive than it is to eat it. And so some thought is that that philosophy of holding the cow sacred came out of that, the need to encourage people to keep the cow alive and use it for the labor and resources it can provide while alive. Of course, then why wouldn't we have sacred goats and sacred chickens? I know, that's silly.